Taking you live to Rio de Janeiro, where Prime Minister Anthony Albanese is speaking.
Domestic audiences right around advanced economies in particular. It's a global challenge, and a global challenge requires global action. The inflation problem won't be solved by one nation alone, which is why we must work together. That's why having a seat at the G20 is really important. It represents some 85% of global GDP and 80% of the world's population. So we have engaged once again in Australia's national interest, because the outcomes here will support jobs at home and economic activity in Australia. That's why our engagement is important. 1 in 4 of Australian jobs is trade dependent, and therefore our engagement here has been very much focused on what is in Australia's national interest, how does our contribution and participation here at this summit, following on from the APEC summit, assist Australians. This morning I was very pleased to join our host, Brazil's President Lula, at the launch of the Global Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty, and made a contribution to the plenary debate that occurred here this morning. The global economy, as people mentioned as well, is being impacted by the ongoing Russian war in the Ukraine, as well as conflict in the Middle East, conflict in Sudan, conflict in a lot of places around the world. And when you have this conflict, it has an economic impact as well as a humanitarian impact. My government is working at home with international partners, including APEC and the G20, to boost economic resilience and ensure that Australia's economy is well placed to face global economic challenges. And as you know, our focus has been putting that downward pressure on inflation whilst providing cost of living support and continuing to see an economy that grows and delivers jobs, because having a job is such an important statement for your quality of life and standard of living. Earlier today, I also met with President Xi to talk about the progress in stabilising relations between our two countries. This is the third bilateral meeting I've had with President Xi. We have restored trade between our two countries. Impediments have been removed across a range of industries: wine, timber, coal, barley, seafood, and as a result of that, some $20 billion of trade has been resumed. That means Australian jobs. I was in Geraldton talking to the co-op that runs the lobster industry there. That's important not just for those people who work with the lobster trade. It's a driver of that town's regional economy as well. And so these things do matter, and I'm confident that the agreement, which will see the lobster trade resume by the end of the year in time for the Lunar New Year in 2025, will be delivered, and those negotiations between our respective departments is taking place. I've also said that dialogue is crucial. I've said a number of times that we'll cooperate with China where we can, we'll disagree where we must, but we'll engage in our national interests. And we've managed to improve relations without compromising any of Australia's national interests, which we have continued to pursue and will continue to pursue. This patient, calibrated and deliberate approach has made a difference and has both saved but also created many thousands of new jobs in Australia. We discussed areas that present opportunities for greater practical cooperation, such as the renewable energy transition and climate change. And I also made clear Australia's views on issues affecting regional and international peace, stability and prosperity, ranging a number of bilateral points as well, including consular matters, which included Dr Young Jun. I also met the Prime Minister of the UK, Keir Starmer, following our meeting in Chogham. I regard Keir as a good friend and someone who it was great to catch up with both informally but formally as well. We reiterated our commitment to progress negotiations on the bilateral AUKUS treaty. That's about the creation of the subs in both South Australia and Barrow in the UK and getting that agreement in place. We also discussed the progress that we announced in Chogham of the Climate and Energy Partnership. It will be signed by our respective ministers, Ministers Bowen and Miliband, in COP29 this week. We had the MICTA meeting, which is Mexico, Indonesia, Korea, Turkey and Australia. They are middle powers, if you like, when you look at the context of the G20. And we had a positive discussion, and then I had a bilateral meeting with President Erdogan of Turkey. Australia and Turkey, of course, have close relations due to our history that we have together, and it was an opportunity to catch up with him. I then had also a formal bilateral with the re-elected President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen. We discussed Australia's support for Ukraine in the land war that is taking place in Europe. We also talked about the opportunity that's there for further investment from Europe in the Future Made in Australia agenda. Countries such as Germany have expressed a great interest and are engaged on issues such as hydrogen. We discussed as well over the last day and a half. I've had informal meetings and pull-asides with a range of counterparts, including President Macron, the Spanish leader, Sanchez, and a range of others as well, and a chance to engage in a constructive way and to build relationships. I've said we need to invest in our capability and invest in our relationships, and that's what I've been doing.
Prime Minister,